I have to read to make sure I give you the right stats, but ProductTank is a not-for-profit meetup, and it's sponsored by Mind the Product, which is based out of London, founded in London at a bar. So how appropriate for us all to sit and gather here on a monthly basis. So ProductTank, we like to meet, monthly. We skip some months where people are doing other things, but it's a volunteer organization, and so we're always open to assistance if anybody would be interested in growing the product community. This is great. I think we started back in person, was it 7 or 8 months ago? Year ago?
Or before, yeah, something like that.
So this is great to see. I'm Molly McCartan. I'm one of the co-facilitators, and Kent McDonald is the other co-facilitator. So if you've got any questions about ProductTank in general, or want to be part of this great event going forward, let us know. And also, this can't happen without sponsors. So today our sponsor is Turnberry Solutions. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Andrew Ryder. Talk a little bit about that.
Not a very good spot. I'll come up with people that are up here too. So we're also hosting this virtually for Philly and
Minnesota. And Kansas City.
So focus on business and technology transformation. A lot of the work that we do falls in this space. Product management. How do we help people get better from their mindsets towards operating product environment, project environment, as well as other suites of services from the technology perspective as well. So at the end of the day, sponsoring this is about growing the practice, growing the community, being able to get people connected, knowing there's such, I think, momentum in Des Moines specifically around people becoming more excited about how they can. So just super thankful for you all being here, sharing your experience, and keep spreading the word, keep inviting people. I think we're just happy to both that here. So thank you for coming tonight.
All right, with that, I'm going to introduce our most important folks. So we've got Alicia Wrabek here. She is an enterprise coach at Principal. She started her career as a visual designer and was involved in a little of everything. Switching from that to user experience design at Principal in 2020. And that exposed her to digital projects, prompting a realization that as a designer, she needed to approach things differently. In 2022, she joined the coaching team, finding her passion for coaching organizations and product managers in creating top-notch products. Thanks, Alicia. And then we've got Casey Schwartz, who is a senior. Yay! Transformation at Principal Financial Group. She started her career in supply management, which led her then to IT. From there, she began her journey through agile product ownership and product management, where she discovered a passion for using tech to solve problems and build better team and organizational cultures. Thanks for being here, Casey. Last but not least, Josh Banning. The enterprise coaching group at Principal. He started as a sergeant in the Marine Corps. And after that, he's held various technology and tech leadership roles in the corporate world. He loves helping people love their job and helping customers love their experience. Thank you. And with that, floor's yours.
Cool.
Josh.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's not right. And yeah, I think it has. I don't know how to get like super instant feedback, but I'm curious online for the folks that are listening in from the other areas, how it sounds without somebody using a mic. So if anybody has any super quick feedback, otherwise we can pick up a mic and make sure that we use it. But I'm going to set the stage a little bit. This is weird because like I think it's the first time in a while I've seen a PowerPoint or a slide. Awesome. Here at ProductTank. So it's Topology. We're doing a presentation. So please don't fill that one. Supposed to be super casual. So a little bit about our Principal Financial. We are a group of 19 coaches across a few different domains. Where we go deep in is product management in the product practice. And then we have a team practices and team leadership practice domain. And then we've got a technical domain. Some of those folks are here today. Then I need to use a mic. I would stay put. That's gonna be tough, Casey. And so we work across the entire company at Principal. And what we've been trying to be really intentional about lately is failing really fast at the services that we provide to help Principal build better things for their customers and help the business. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about it in two parts. We're going to talk about our take on transformation and what we've been learning over the last year or two doing that. And we're going to talk about one component led by Alicia that has been really critical. We have found, hypothesis proven true, that product taxonomy is a really critical and can play a really critical role in change within a product organization. So those are a couple of different things we're going to hit on. You can interrupt, I would say, all three of us wildly as we're talking. It's supposed to be super chill. Ask us challenging questions. These are all tests. Some we're still actively running today with a lot of folks that are here with us. So none of this is like, oh, we've got it all figured out and we're here to bestow upon you all of these things that we've learned. We're going to share what we've learned, but we haven't gotten it all figured out. So I wanted to set it up a little bit with how we view transformations. And that word, which, if I'm being vulnerable, the word transformation usually scares the hell out of me. I've got some baggage associated with the word transformation, but I've been learning to love it, especially with how the coaching group has been talking about transformation, because we talk about it as an evolution. A lot of experience, I don't know if I'm unique in this, but a lot of our experience in this type of industry around transformation is the capital A, capital T, agile transformations, where we'll go in and we'll work to optimize team effectiveness and efficiency, flow of value. And what it often boils down to is, can we get the teams to build stuff faster? And what we really want to talk about is, can we start to change what stuff is coming into those teams? And even better, can we help those teams be part of the conversation about that stuff and turn that stuff into problems? And so again, this is getting back to being a product anchored transformation more than purely a team level agility transformation where we boil the ocean and all the fish die. Because I think we've probably been, all of us in some way or another, part of those types of transformations. And so what we've been working on, and Casey will talk about this a little bit more and more eloquently, I promise, is looking at the way teams change the way of working is really valuable. But one of the biggest ways we can help them do that is by changing the environment. And so we, in our transformations, focus very heavily on the leaders and senior leaders, and we even partner with the executive staff at Principal to talk about what needs to change from a structural, strategic, and cultural standpoint at those highest levels, so that we can really provide those teams and those humans that are along that value stream a better experience from a transformative perspective, so that we can really end up handing that that transformation off once the coaches, quote unquote, pack up their bags and leave, to the local leaders within these different parts of the organization. So a lot of times when we talk about that at Principal, we talk about these as vertical slices of the organization, where we're not working at the value stream level only, but we take an organizational slice of value within that organization, a line of business, if you will, in one of Principal's business areas, and helping them transform more holistically.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Totally.
So back on those conversations with the leaders, executives, how does that go?
Not always easy. Yeah. Oftentimes, and for other people, since it sounds like the audio is really good, I'd be interested in anybody else chiming in. Casey and I, and Adam and some other folks, we started with the executive management team. So that includes the CEO and his directs at Principal, having a conversation around organizational agility. Because that's really how we package this up at Principal, holistically. You can call it marketing, but it's real. We're talking about agility at every aspect of the company, and they're lofty goals. What I often hear, I think what we hear quite a bit, is theoretically, like, this all makes sense. Like, you can't argue with this stuff. Faster flow of value, better connection to customer. This is all great, but how? And how do we do it at scale? And so our hypothesis is that and I think we're starting to see some good results from this from a cultural standpoint, if we can go into P&L anchored lines of business within the organization and show at that scale what change looks like and measure that and help people see, that usually generates, or that can generate, a little bit of buy-in across as well as up. But the conversations are super hard. Yeah. Shocking to everyone, right?
I think what helped the most is having a peer at that executive or VP, AVP level who bought in, that felt change to their peers. That's what we get pulled in then, versus trying to sell ourselves in. And we still try to do that, but through where we have been left in the door and we're doing these transformations, it's helping us build a social proof for the rest of the organization, so they see, oh wow, okay, I have that problem, and they're creating all this value, they're hitting their targets, I want some of that. So it's tough, but if you can get a champion of sorts in there and actually knows what good product is, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, the invitation in, I know I've got a lot of friends, we talk about this a lot, Tim, about getting invited in. And it's when we were a leaner and meaner and smaller coaching team, the invitation in was pretty easy to get at a team level. Now we're getting invitations in, like Casey got an invitation in at the VP level for this last transformation that she's been leading. But that doesn't always feel like an invitation at the value stream level. Not every engineer feels like they were part of that invitation, right? So that adds some complexity, and that adds a different level of experience that we need to provide with this product, if you will, of a transformation. There's a different approach we need to take when we talk about empathy and building trust, and showing a little bit of vulnerability ourselves and providing some quick wins at every level of the organization. That's really tough to get buy-in from engineers, from designers, from product people, to directors of engineering, to VPs of business lines. It's a lot, right, Casey?
I think it's big help. Yeah. So what transition look like, what coaching plan will look like, product coaching, we co-created that with leaders and team members at all the levels. And so there was a sense of ownership and that they had a say. It wasn't being inflicted on them. Not every team member feels that way, of course, but you do your best.
Yeah, and I don't think that's any different than, any kind of form of transformation. That we're going to have, if you think about that change curve and where people find themselves, and we've got the front runners and the laggards and things like that. So that's always something we're going to run up against. In the spirit of ProductTank, what is really central to a lot of this, when we think from an operating model perspective, is product. And so the way that this all gets kind of anchored together, and where the gooey, chewy caramel middle, if you will, comes into play, is having this product operating model combined with some engineering excellence. And so I mentioned the technical coaching domain in the enterprise coaching group. We've got several of them here today. And then we've got organizational agility, which talks about team practices at scale. And no, I'm not talking about scaled agile, don't worry. But having these three concepts of kind of culture, value, and quality coming through at all levels of this type of change really became important for us and for our leadership. And so this is how we talk about this. Now, with different levels of the organization, we might emphasize different words, or we might say, when we're talking about product operating model, what that really means is customer centricity and time to value. We don't skirt away from using the word product, but in a non-digital native company like Principal, where the first product they made was not sold on a computer, there's been a lot of work of talking about what we mean when we say product, what we mean when we say product. So, but we use those three dynamics when we talk about these transformations and when we go in and work for it. So Casey's going to talk a little bit to some detail about what this transformation, these types of transformations at Principal end up looking.
This picture was different on the but points along the transformation curve that we go through, a big gap towards the end, and that's just showing that this only works for as long as things stay the same, and the market's going to change, the business is going to change, and when that happens, you just repeat. The first three parts are the redrain phase, and what's included in that.
Yeah. Loud and annoying.
Work on it.
Okay, go.
So the redrain phase is really key, and we've seen this in our transformations that we've been doing in the last year. It really involves those senior leaders in the business areas and engineering areas coming together and talking about what outcomes are they after? What's causing them problems today, and what are they hoping this will solve? What are the tangible outcomes? Is it, more data and insights? Is it fewer dependencies? Getting really specific about the outcomes that they're after, and also what they need to accomplish as a business. And then once we have a really good understanding of that, we also educate them throughout the process. Many of them have an understanding of product to some extent, but we don't all have the same shared understanding of what we mean when we talk about the product operating model and what this could do for them. So there's definitely an education component that's really key early on, so that throughout this process, we don't trip all over ourselves just for terminology or prior experience. After the redrain phase, we go into identify, and part of that is bringing the business leaders and engineering leaders together with some of the product managers and business architects and architects and many other folks to actually talk through their strategy. What's going on in the marketplace? What do they really need to accomplish? What keeps them up at night, we could say, and had an opportunity for the participants to ask questions, to get a better understanding. And these participants were people that are already working on and supporting this area, and they've never really had that type of an opportunity to have that strategic conversation. And so that was, again, really good to get shared understanding about the strategy and where we need to go, which then enabled us to figure out, okay, are we structured in a way that makes sense, that will enable us to achieve those goals that we're after? And so Alicia's going to do a little bit of a deep dive on product taxonomy. And we're finding that oftentimes we're probably not organized in a way that enables us to achieve those outcomes that we're after. If we have 5 different dependencies to deliver one chunk of value that takes us 6 months, that's probably not working so well. If we're working on 3 lines of business in a given day, that's probably a problem for us to be agile, truly agile. And so in the identify phase, we go through that process to figure out, are we structured the right way? We have the right roles. What do we actually need to change before we change anything? And then in the activate, that is getting the right people in the right roles. It is doing training on what product operating model is, how the cheese is going to move, what's going to change, and also training and activation on the new ways of working. We know many people have been through Agile, capital A, T transformations before, and some of it is repeat in our Agile boot camps, for example. But again, this is just another opportunity to get the team level and leaders on the same page about what's actually going to change. So there shouldn't be surprises from that perspective. And like I said, once we do that and activate, something changes and we'll have to do it again. Maybe a more lightweight version, but just knowing that change, we should expect it. And it's okay that we didn't get it 100% right off the bat. We talk a lot about being willing to get it 80%, to be confident enough to move forward and to be okay with changing once we learn more?
So I'll add, if I may, that next one, which hopefully becomes very iterative. If we think about the constant change, Casey, you mentioned about the changing market, the changing customer, attrition within the organization, changing leadership. It can require that, or it doesn't require, it can cause that curve to occur at different times. What we're hoping to do by our investment in active coaching of leaders in leading change is that it may not require as heavy or any coach support the next time they want to take a look at, you know what, we might need to shift around how our products are structured, or we might need to revisit how our discovery methods are scaling across this line of business, different things like that. So that's another part of trying to make this evolutionary and where we can hand it off. That's the goal.
Just a more detailed dive of the process that we have been using to approach these transformations. So you can see in the region identify and activate is a lot of what I just spoke to with a little bit more meat behind it. I don't know how we did looking back on those time estimates.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, they're even in there because what we learned is their readiness or willingness to change and to get comfortable enough to take the next step. Doing taxonomy in one area took a really long time because we had a lot of people involved to get buy-in, but they need to marinate and we needed to functionally test it, say, let's take this piece of work that we did that took us 6 months, see how it would flow through this new design. And so these things can be very dependent on the participants. And they had said, gosh, I wish I would have known how long this would take, how much of an investment, but it really depends.
It does. And I just want to call out, Casey, that with a lot of what we're seeing here, especially, I know it might be tough to see in the room, but in that redream and that identify, it almost starts to feel like two transformations. In the redream and identify, there is a heavy accountability to the leaders and senior leaders in these organizations that we're working. This is where they're spending time talking with us and their product staff or to-be product staff about what they're focusing on. And I don't want to talk through that, Casey, but I think it's important to talk about with this approach, we're working very hand in hand with those senior leaders in these organizations so that the rest is less hard.
Yeah, they're really involved throughout this process the entire time, which is a little bit different. They're not really punting the ball at some point. They're still actively engaged where we've activated. So this just speaks to our coaching approach, which Josh has already really touched on, but when we think about changing the environment, that's a huge task, in addition to changing the ways of working at the team level and with the individuals that we're coaching. And so we knew going in that we need to tackle this from every level and from every angle to really make it stick and to be meaningful. And so Josh, like Josh said, coaching at that executive level, we got a group of executives together and every 2 weeks we had a topic that we would cover and making sure that they were comfortable, that they had buy-in, that they understood what product meant. And we were having these open conversations about what scares you. What are you really willing to change? And we share this with other people. And then we also coach, of course, those product managers, the engineering leaders, and our approach is generally to coach those leads, not so much the team and all the team members, but coaching and developing those leads. So like Josh said, when they get to that next break and they need to change something, that they're fully equipped to do that they're leading from the front and they don't have to have a coach. They truly feel like I can do this. And we're trying to do that at all levels. I think that our approach, we're trying to address many, if not all, the things that make transforming really hard. Like, okay, well, cool that you trained me, but I'm not organized in a way that makes any sense. So I still am dependent on 5 other teams to do my job. Or cool that we transformed and we're now, measuring these DORA metrics, but I haven't really been trained on my job. Or cool that we're in a product cohort now, but I don't really feel supported by my leader. I don't actually feel empowered to make decisions. And so coaching at all these different altitudes, we're really trying to address all of those potential issues or problems that we typically see if we don't do that.
Yeah, and maybe just a real quick kind of zoom in, if you will, and like I wanted to call out a couple like examples of what some of this looks like. So when Casey was talking about meeting with some of those executive leaders within a particular line of business, that looked like Casey and Pete Anderson pairing up and meeting with that group and talking about, like she said, hopes and fears, and also like what's on the table and what's off the table when we talk about transformation in your organization. What do you feel that the organization is empowered to change? And I think in that particular one, the only thing that came down to what could not be negotiable was the values of the organization. Yeah. And so we still get an opportunity. Casey, I've seen her take the opportunity to remind those leaders of that quite a bit. But that was the only thing that they said was off the table for change. But then like thinking about some of the other things Casey was talking about, team practices and team leadership coaches are assigned to scrum masters, not to team. Product coaches are assigned to product managers, not to teams. And that may seem subtle or weird, but again, that's kind of a tactical example of how we're investing in those competency or domain leads within the organization. Casey's point, helping it to where they can lead these in the future. Cool. I keep fiddling with this thing and I turned it off. So before sorry. No, I was waiting.
Spoiler alert of some things that we're hearing from our transformation customers, some leading indicators of success. I'll read one of them here. I don't want to read to you can you read these or is it too? No. Okay. So what they're saying, a product team member, the shift to business identifying the strategies and key results in a measurable manner allows the team to move from task takers to contributing partners using their technical knowledge to help achieve business outcomes. Another team member said, it's nice to have ownership of the tech our team supports by being empowered to make decisions that allow us to move faster in the right direction. I will caveat this with, this is not perfect. Everything is not going perfectly. They still have work that they inherited or that they had to do before we went through the transformation. And, we're 3-ish months in with this particular area that these came from, and yet they're still saying these things. So those are pretty good leading indicators from those participants that we're at least on the right track. Another product team member said, our backlog is small but mighty. It's allowing us to focus on the highest priority items and aren't juggling so many items at once. And a leader said that there's better understanding around the why and value of the work the product teams are doing. This has reduced the noise and distractions and created clearer priority and focus. And that's pretty powerful because the leaders in this area in particular felt that they didn't know what the teams were working on, that they didn't have visibility. Like, am I getting the value from this investment? They didn't know. So again, they're great leading indicators for this transformation in particular. And with that, I'll get a little bit more into the meat of the how. Rush, do you want to go into this one a little bit?
Yeah, I'll move through this here. Likely because aside from color and weird words, it's probably looks really similar, really familiar. This is a product development life cycle. It's called the four squares. If you want to find somebody to blame for that, it's mostly me. It's also that guy in the corner over there, Jim. I think he helped name this thing. But good. Every time I'm here. So this is like totally not unique to Principal. This is how we talk about the product development life cycle. Strategy, discovery, delivery, assessment. Of course, we stack these things together and make them look sequential, like they're phases. And so sometimes we have to explain that they're absolutely not phases, that this product development life cycle works together continuously, informing each other. So we need to do a bit of a rebrand and make it look more like that image that Alicia made at the top right. But when we go in and we talk about product operating model and we start at a high level, we talk about this development life cycle. We talk about what it looks like from a product perspective for strategy, how design, engineering, product, and other functions show up together in strategy and discovery. And then, of course, delivery and having measurability and telemetry from a technology and value perspective throughout all of this. I will say, and I don't know if this is unique to Principal, the interesting part in here is discovery. That's the one that we have the biggest across the board opportunity to better understand and hone our skills at as a product organization within Principal. So when we talk about product coaching, we spend a lot of time helping teams understand what continuous discovery looks like alongside things like OKRs and different things like that from a strategy perspective. That's a high level.
I agree. Of not having or taking the dedicated focus time to actually work on it and not having all the data and insights from those leaders in order to inform a product strategy. And so giving people just a space to create, collaborate with others to build that, I think made all the difference there. But I will also say the assessment.
All of it.
Yeah. To assess if it was the right thing or if anybody's using it, because we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So using this as a placemat of sorts for all those levels that we coach at helps them to not only understand what we're doing and why, but we try to help them see themselves in each square. So we have this placemat for a product manager, for a delivery manager, I think for an engineering leader, and then we talk through it with those senior leaders to make sure that you don't just do strategy. You don't just care about strategy just because you're a leader. Here's some questions you should probably be asking about these other parts of the life cycle. Here's your role in supporting or creating that environment that teams need to be successful. So it's been a helpful resource, again, to give those aligned expectations.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have a lot of difficulty with discovery. What have been the biggest challenges that you've faced with discovery?
I'll share one. Sorry, Casey. One is that discovery is just figuring out if we can build. It's all around feasibility. If you're familiar with like maybe how Marty Kagan in SVPG talks about the 4 big risks, a lot of times people conceptualize discovery as like we just need to figure out if we can, from a technology perspective, build the thing. The viability testing and the value and usability testing may not happen as much or as continuous or just in time. That's one from my standpoint.
I think because it's so new, it's a new muscle that we haven't got the reps in, and we're also not sure how to get the reps because they do. All the team members come to these events, and who leads them, and how often do we have them, and what should we come out? There's a lot of uncertainty, and most of us tend to be or lean towards perfectionism in these, and we want to do the right thing so bad that it can cripple us a little bit. And so I think it's just that change curve and being comfortable, being uncomfortable. That's a big part of it. And then I think the other biggest piece is where they have that inherited work and there's not a lot of discovery to do. It is more of that, okay, can we do it with the tech we have, with the skill sets we have on the team? It's not really, should we do it? Is it the right thing? Do our customers care? And so now what we're seeing is product managers at least having the conversations with stakeholders. If it's something new, they're asking, well, what's the value that we're after? What are we driving towards? Or if they're working on something and then they're reporting out their progress or how it does or doesn't align to their OKR, they're having a good conversation about, gosh, I said we would do it, but I don't know how it aligns to our strategy. And sometimes those leaders go, oh, you're right. So again, I think it's the inherited work, kind of the old way of working, and then just, it's new.
I would add to and back to Casey's point on like strategy is another opportunity. Is the strategy may not be a little bit to your point conducive to doing any discovery. Derek and I had a chat, I think last year at some point. It's like We're really good at writing strategy to get funding, but we're not really always great at elaborating a strategy that can align people to it and help them understand their part in that strategy. And I think a lot of that kind of stuff gives way to healthy problem-solving continuous discovery habits. And I did not mean to use the title of a really popular book right there. Okay. I want to make sure that like taxonomy is going to be such a super important part of this. So I want to make sure we get time for that. Casey, do you want to chat through this? Do you want me to hit it?
It's gonna be, okay, we just found when we were making sure we all had common shared understanding that it came down to simple things like what is a product? What kinds of products do we have? When we think about the taxonomy work and how to organize ourselves, aligning on a common definition of these is really valuable. So customer facing, customer enabling, partner enabling, and then the platform products that support those other product types. Anything critical you want to add to that?
No, and these shouldn't be super surprising. I mean, if you've talked with Pete or a lot of, or you just all as practitioners and folks in product, these are pretty chill. But getting a group of to this definition and these product types, that was a big deal at Principal Financial Group. We have a group of, it's called the PLG, the Product Leadership Group, which is a group across the enterprise of product leaders. And to get all of them, I think there's maybe 15 of them or so aligned on this definition and these types of products. That was, I mean, I was really about campaign. So that was the big deal there, I would say. We're gonna dive in one level more, and finally, what we've all been waiting for is for Wrabek, everybody.
So this is just another way to think about those different types of products, and you're going to see we're going to start weaving in more business concepts as we go here. So this is a product onion. We don't take credit for this. Mike Patton was on our podcast internally, and he exposed us to this idea, but it actually really works well to have conversations with our different business stakeholders around how those products fall into maybe more of a business life cycle. And so if we look at those end products, the ones we sell, that will be more geared towards metrics that are like driving revenue. When we go toward our other types of products, we start to get into a deeper calculation of that. And so with externally facing and internally facing, we're going to get close to that other part of the calculation, which is, of course, increasing revenue, reducing costs in order to get closer to the P&L. And platform helps to go across and create efficiencies throughout the organization. And so just weaving in some more ways to talk about these different types of products and how they fall into the landscape.
Oh, sorry. I was.
No, it's okay, so what is product taxonomy? We like to think, and I certainly like to think about it, if we've developed this here at Principal, way to go through and look at some of these different concepts. And so it helps us challenge and change how we're thinking about value as an organization, especially connecting products to business value. And one of the things that there's a lot of stuff up here. So we want to have a deeper connection to strategy. We want to be more focused on outcomes. We want to think about product at scale. We want there to be reduced dependencies and increased ownership. But one of the secrets to taxonomy is in creating a taxonomy, choosing the right people in the room can actually be one of the first steps that you're making in change management and thinking about products. We're all gearing toward a shared understanding of what those mean, of what products will do and how they support the business. And so you want to have your key business stakeholders in those conversations, co-creating with you, so it doesn't feel like a one-way conversation. on any of the sides. And so taxonomy can be really helpful if you come to a physical point and you have decided that maybe the way that we are organized doesn't necessarily make sense for our strategy, or maybe we've got a lot of challenges in front of us that is getting in our way of delivering value. Thinking about how you're organized can help with a lot of that. The way that we have been doing this at Principal is trying to figure out the scoping of products. Taxonomy is just figuring out what your products are in any sort of creating a definition between and a clear sense of ownership of those products. And so we want to scope them thinking about the whole product environment. Oftentimes we maybe scope on capability or maybe heavy on the technology side. But what's amazing is we can actually look at the business strategy, we can overlay the customer journey, we can look at that technology landscape and look at the business value stream together with shared context to create a better organization that's going to move us in that direction. The biggest piece here, the customer journey, the tech landscape, the business value stream, the tech landscape probably changes a lot, but the customer journey and business value stream stay relatively static as long as we don't make giant shifts in how we're delivering value to our customers as an organization. But the thing that changes often really is that business strategy. It's very key to make sure that our products support that. And so we have some different activities that we go through when we are defining our products. It starts out with getting very deep understanding of that business strategy. We talked about that connection where some of our folks that have been in those conversations have said, I've never felt so connected as I do right now to this business strategy. And so we're creating that clarity, and then we are seeing how that could flow through actual organizational structure. This probably looks fairly familiar. So product scoping doesn't necessarily help us deliver on business value or customer value. This is a real life example. I have taken out the names, but in a space, we had 3 different organizational structures that had ownership of different apps, systems, processes, capabilities. But then when we tried to look, we said, let's make a change to something like benefit payments for our customers. It had to go across 3 different organizational structures. We had to connect apps. We had to those teams have to interact with 3 to 5 different other teams in order to do anything. And so we can take that and think about what those building blocks of a product are, the value that we're delivering, and start to create an organizational structure out of that, rather than really going heavy on the tech side and trying to create organizations more based on capability, like information, something like that.
One thing, if I,
Please.
going back to the question on why discovery is hard, product management is nearly impossible when you're managing products where this happens. You effectively become a project manager, right? You're managing that feature through a system. And so you're really just focused on blocking and tackling and making sure this got done here and that got done and is your piece done before mine. And so this has been such an unlock for me in my own journey. This is a big deal. I'm really passionate about helping product managers be able to do product. And this is a big part of why it's valuable.
It was eye-opening for a lot of the group as we go through and we do an exercise where we try to map some of the different technology, different aspects, pieces, process systems, and map it to a value stream. And we start to see how complex and intertwined all of those different elements are. So it gets in our way, and the dependencies get in the way, and they get in the way of delivering value because we end up just managing processes and moving things between teams. So this is an example of a product taxonomy. If you look at the top, I've got a business value stream. So pre-sale, onboarding, servicing, fulfillment, not surprising at all. There's lots of different examples of business value streams that may change based on the organization that you work for. Then we can overlay something like a customer journey. So it makes sense with the business value stream, because when we are trying to sell to a prospect, that prospect is researching. And so the customer journey would be research, buy, manage, and renew. It's what we have used at Principal to align around those different concepts. We can take these and we can think about what some stream aligned teams would be. So the boxes on the top are stream aligned in that they are aligned across a journey or life cycle in a linear way based on really what the job is that product needs to do. If we look at that first family, growth and scaling, you can see that lines up with pre-sale onboarding, research and buying. Those are all of the business processes that we need to do, all of the internal customer steps that they may need to take or activities that they need to do in order to start business or become a customer in Principal. And so maybe within that product family, we would have something like open product pages that are public. We may have an internal sales tooling type product, and we might have an onboarding product. Those together are able to create value around growth and scaling that we can have some focus and get closer to that P&L, right? So we're acquiring customers, we're bringing them on with like lead time to value being as low as we possibly can to make sure that we are building a good customer experience. So we would want to look at these together, and maybe there'd be some shared goals between those teams as we start to roll out more of a product way of working. We look over at satisfaction retention. Maybe there's an account, maybe there's a review product, maybe we've got a servicing product that a lot of our internal teams use. We can look at those together and really think about satisfaction and retention being appropriately for that family. So this is just one example of what some streamlined teams would look like. Product families are really great about creating containers around products to get a little bit closer to those higher levels of business value that our business is talking about. So it makes a lot of sense for our business folks to see, they start to see themselves in these products during these conversations. The next step that we would do after defining a basic like wireframe like this is we would go in and we would look at each one of these and we would say, what will this product do? So if we were back to my web design days when I was a web designer, I used to start out a project saying, what are you going to be hiring this product to do? Because your website to do, it's an extension, it's like an employee. What is it going to do? So we start to shape that out for each of these products. And then we also look at what the success criteria is going to be for that. So not necessarily related to like an OKR, but what are the persistent measures of success that we'll be able to see? So onboarding might be something like time to value. Servicing might be something like meeting service level agreements or reducing the time it takes to help a customer, something like that. We could have some persistent measures within each of these different products. Platform products, of course, are not streamlined necessarily. They are going to be enabling products that are going to support streamlined families or those streamlined products. So in this example, we've got an experience product. Maybe that's got some elements of the website that would turn into a platform with some services. Maybe it's got like a design library with components and different elements of that experience. Same thing for workflow and same thing for reporting. So what would be the different aspects of the platform that we would need for this product taxonomy in order to achieve our strategy? And so if we've got some heavy strategy elements around data, maybe something about data platform would make sense as long as it's at the right point in time for that type of scale to be happening. We're always balancing scale in these taxonomy conversations because it'd be really easy to make a giant organization, but we often do not have the ability to add endless headcount to our product organization. And we also know that bigger teams does not equal better value. And so if we can look at this, and we need to have conversations around scale. So in some areas, you see we've got servicing that goes across the satisfaction and retention product family. We could have multiple servicing products that we could split them up if they had the context that they would need to be split up. So let's say we needed some that were going to be aligned just to what it's like to own an account. And maybe we actually need a whole separate servicing product around review. Maybe that would make sense within this organization to split it up. And so taxonomy, this is just one example of what it can look like. And the scale is very important in considering how many products you're going to need, how many platforms are you going to. And so there's more around this. So let's look at what some scoping examples might look like. You may scope by component, audience, product journey, channel, architectural component. You could add probably way more here. I think we stole this from Marty Kagan. And so it's not a new idea, not owned by us by any means. In this example, I've got product families that are helping us organize by a journey. But then inside of them, I have what some different scoping might look like. So within the research product family, again, that's the beginning of our journey there. Maybe we would split by audience. So maybe we have a different product for what the partners go through or what the employers go through, what the individuals go through. We would want to make those decisions based on our strategy, based on the scale, based on the amount of items that are owned with each of these products. We can make all different decisions based on that. So it's very conversational. And when we start to shape this out, we try to make things similarly sized. Go through, I don't need to read too much into this because I want to keep moving on. But there are a lot of different ways to scope products, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's about finding whatever's going to be the best fit for your organization and for your strategy. How we do this, we've got 9 steps to creating product taxonomy. So first, we want to define the scope. So what is game to think about, what's not. Maybe we don't want to cross P&L lines for now and want to start within a P&L line, for example, or one area of the business. We need to assemble the team. Again, the magic of taxonomy is gaining aligned understanding around what products are, what they can do for the business. And so who you have in the group is really important. We want to define key outcomes. We want to think about what we want this taxonomy to do. Is it around reducing dependencies as a key thing we need to do? Well, we're going to need to look at that later on. So the outcomes come in and really handy when we go to test. We need to align on strategy. And so we're going to have those conversations, deeply understanding the business strategy. We can all get an alignment on the most important things to do, the biggest challenges in our way to doing those items. And then we're going to explore the product landscape, which is digging into that customer journey, the business value stream, business capabilities, whatever else is within your product landscape. And then we're going to go into like a design sketch wireframing ideas. So depending on your group, this could be facilitated in a lot of different ways. And then we're going to want to do some sort of conceptual testing of the taxonomy. So this is one example where we created a new taxonomy. There's a lot of ways to test it. We can test it and say, okay, is this helping us achieve those outcomes? Let's see which products are going to fund the strategy through. So we do like a funding exercise. One of my favorites is taking work and trying to map it through the taxonomy. We actually reduce dependencies from what we had before. Once we're feeling pretty good about the taxonomy, we need to do a skills assessment and we need to map the skills to those products. The products are going to have different skills that they're going to require based on both the technology that is now within that product, but also where the product's going, the product vision is going to be. And then we're going to want to create an action plan. So what are the next steps? What is the change management that has to happen to bring everybody along so we can all feel part of this larger transformational effort? So what are the lessons that we have learned so far? Taxonomy is all about trade-off decisions. So getting really clear on the why is critical to success and adoption. Getting clear on the why also helps us communicate that later as we are working more with teams. We're going to need to ground and reground in strategy often when designing and testing the taxonomy. Part of that is because of 3. It's very hard to balance the way that we're organized today and the vision state of tomorrow. Economy's law, it's very, very hard to create a structure that is not, is a structure that's different than the one that you are already inside of. So having an external perspective can be really helpful. And we're never going to get it perfect. And so what we want to do is get it directionally right and then iterate. When do we do it? So our taxonomy is going to change over time. We don't want to set it and forget it. If our strategy has a massive shift, we may want to change what our product structure looks like. Maybe we need to add a product, or maybe something's changed in the market, or we need to respond. If you're feeling like you are managing prioritization, not necessarily a product, maybe there's an opportunity to think about the way you're organized. If you're really struggling with dependencies, taxonomy is likely something that might be able to help with that a little bit. If we've got teams that are tripping over one another or duplicating efforts or work, that is something where having some clear lines can really help with that. It's really hard to make strategy a reality. That's another thing where we want this taxonomy to allow a strategy to flow through it and to really support that strategy. So that's another thing that can help. And then maybe we are not aligned with the previous goals that we had anymore. Maybe it's about something else and it's where we've tackled the dependency thing and it's about another context. And questions?
Alicia,
Yeah.
back on your 9 steps
Yep.
to creating taxonomy,
Uh-huh.
you said something about wireframing and designing. Was that in regard to specifically the economy or the product itself?
The taxonomy.
Okay.
Yep. So at that point, we'd have like something that would look kind of like this, but more sketchy. We'd start throwing ideas on what the product should be inside of there. And so it's gonna get higher fidelity, more towards something like this that has, of course, way more detail than it has in it. But it starts out fairly sketchy and with like sticky notes everywhere. And it's really sketchy and it's
That's why the method is to do that and get all the products out there and then start to align it and you're drawing like, oh, this theme is connected to all these different products and how do we get them moving? That's like a whole living process that's pretty amazing to watch.
You don't even add technology or applications into this wireframe until you've got something you feel pretty good about and you're ready to test it.
Yep.
Which is a different approach. Usually we do that a lot sooner.
We do have engineers and engineering leadership specifically in the room, so we make sure that we're considering that variable back to Alicia's equation. Because we don't want to be like, well, technology and the applications don't matter. They absolutely do. But in my experience, what I feel like we've over-indexed to in larger organizations, by larger, I mean like in a company that's more than 5 people, is that we always design around our applications and the technology. Well, that's all the on-prem stuff, and that's the stuff for this vendor. And so like that vendor stuff goes together, but they're like very disparate parts of a value stream. And nowhere near each other from a customer journey. So all trying to balance those things.
fact, some of our engineering partners that go through this be super helpful in helping us to test different things or think about things a little bit differently. So it's not that we're trying to reduce that by any means.
You know, business architects, if your organization has business architecture as well, this isn't pandering, I know. Molly. Understand the organization, the different processes that run through these applications. So we've partnered with a couple different business architects across different organizations. They help in design, and some customer experience professionals have also played a big part in helping us understand the macro customer journeys that run through the company. It's been a cross-functional
So thank you for coming. Help yourself to food, and dingle, and we will be getting word out on our next ProductTank event.
Sometime.
Great to see everybody.
Thank you.